Our international friends gather around so we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good things. And joining us here on this glorious day with his own glorious purpose, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I'm doing well, but I've decided that I think that I would do better if I lived at the end of time and can make everything, all reality, into what I want it to be.
That does sound pretty good. I like that. Hey, listen, guys, gonna let you know, obviously, Loki came out last night. I mean, for us, it was last night at midnight. It came out 10 hours ago. And so we are going to be talking about Loki a little bit later today. We're going to keep it as spoiler-free as we possibly can. But I do just want to give you a little bit of warning. We're going to try to keep it spoiler-free. In the midst of our discussion, one or two things may come out, but whatever. We're going to do our best to keep it spoiler-free as we do. But we do have a whole bunch of things that we're going to talk about here today. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to take the first half of the show to take some predetermined topics, and then we're going to go into our second half of our show where we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you have a live comment or question that you'd like read on the show, if it's appropriate for the show, go ahead and use the tip link that's down in the description of this video. Just click on that there, or you can enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question read on the show, again, if it's appropriate for the show. And, of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys so much for that support. But before we get to those live questions, let's get to our main topics. And how do we select our main topics? Well, it's simple. You guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you think we should have as a main topic here on the John Campea Show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. And by the way, our friend, I don't even know how to pronounce the name, Olarutimi8 sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Okay, guys, with that down, let's get into our first main topic today. Rob, what is our first main topic today?
Well, John, our first main topic comes to us from Jack Black's Guitar. Hey, John and Rob, man, I am filled with sheer sadness. I just read that the Tiger King series that Amazon was going to do and was going to star Nicolas Cage as the main character, Joe Exotic, has been canceled even before they got it started. I'm really upset about this because obviously I was looking forward to it, but also I thought Cage was going to be great in it. Why do you think they killed it, and what are your thoughts? Well, John, I actually watched the interview yesterday with Nicolas Cage when he addressed this very issue. And first of all, I agree with Jack Black's guitar. I thought the idea of Nicolas Cage playing Joe Exotic, I mean, come on. With his new movie out, Pig, where everybody's talking about how great this movie is. And I think, and after seeing Color Out of Space, I mean, we're in the middle of a, can we call it a Cage-assance? Nick Cage, he was already everywhere, but now, I mean, we're seeing him play all these diverse roles and being all these incredible characters. Man, that dude would have killed it as Joe Exotic. But, you know, on the red carpet, I saw him say something that I thought was pretty astute. And he had said, look, this was a big deal when it was on. You know, everybody was talking about it. But now he said that maybe the people, the powers that be at Amazon thought, you know, this was a moment in time, but now we've moved beyond it. And it was just, it's old news. And Variety says, reports on this as well. We should clear the record, Nick Cage told Variety. I read 2 excellent scripts, which I did think were excellent, but I think Amazon ultimately felt that it was material that had become past tense because it took so long for it to come together. They felt at one point that it was lightning in a bottle, but that point has since faded into the distance and it's no longer relevant. You know what? I think they're probably right about this because, you know, it was a zeitgeist moment. Everybody was talking about it when it was airing. But even now, you know, the woman, the villain of the piece, she's on Cameo doing videos for people. And it's like, once you've gone from cause celeb streaming star to doing Cameo videos, maybe you've passed into irrelevance. What do you think?
I was I was surprised when I heard that they pulled the plug on it, because when they announced this project, when the news came out that Nick Cage is going to be playing this role, it generated like a lot of hoopla. A lot of people were very excited about it, and everybody's talking about. I thought, listen, if there's somebody out there who can probably capture this as well as anybody, it's probably Sir Nicolas Cage. He's probably the guy who can do it. But you know what? I actually completely agree with what he's saying. Like, for instance, while Tiger King was out there, that's all I ever heard anybody talk about. Tiger King, when it was done, I still only ever heard people talk about it for a good number of weeks. I haven't heard anybody mention Tiger King in ages, like not even mention it. And I think they were right. Like, this is one of those projects where it's like the topic is hot for a second. If you can jump on it and greenlight it and fast lane it and get it into production fairly quickly, maybe it's something you can take advantage of. But listen, I'm not going to pretend like I was personally excited for a Tiger King show. I wasn't. I'm not going to pretend that I was, but I know a lot of people were. But I have a feeling a lot of those people have probably shrunk in numbers as well. And reading Nicolas Cage's comments, they seem actually very astute. I was like, I think he's probably right on the money, and it probably isn't even worth it for Amazon anymore. So anyway, that's my guess. Question is for you guys. Were you guys looking forward to a Tiger King series on Amazon with Nicolas Cage? It's not happening now. How do you feel? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. And by the way, our friends Harry Talks Movies and RM send in super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that very much. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by David Hoffman, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. According to Deadline, the next Kelvin Star Trek movie will be helped by WandaVision director Matt Shakman. Looking forward to this choice, especially after the great work he turned in for Marvel on WandaVision. What are your thoughts? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Rob, you and I differ on the state of Star Trek today. I actually quite enjoy the Star Trek stuff we've got going on. You do not. I think both you and I probably are very reflective of certain chunks of the viewing audience out there. But I, as somebody who does, I like Discovery. I like J.J. Abrams, especially the last one. I like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies. I like Picard, all that kind of stuff. But even as somebody who has liked this stuff, I've got to say, I am losing great interest from the number of director announcements we've had regarding a new Star Trek movie that seems to come and go. I mean, obviously there was a lot. I mean, I don't blame Paramount for this, but there was a lot of hoopla going on around that Quentin Tarantino might direct one, because this things that Quentin Tarantino said about he and JJ talked about a script idea that kind of came and went. And then there was, I can't remember who it was. There was a female director who was brought on board. And then I haven't really heard anything come of that since. And then now we've got Matt Shakman. Now, let's talk about that specifically just for a second. The idea of Matt Shakman directing a Star Trek movie is fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. What he did on WandaVision was amazing, and it got them a lot of awards consideration. As a matter of fact, the folks over at Variety write this: "From the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the final frontier, WandaVision director Matt Shakman has been tapped by Paramount Pictures and Bad Robot to direct the next Star Trek feature film, from a screenplay by Lindsay Beer from Sierra Burgess is a Loser and Geneva Robertson from Captain Marvel. J.J. Abrams is set to produce. The cast, however, remains unclear. Shakman earned an Emmy nomination for helming the inaugural Marvel Studios TV series, one of 23 Emmy nominations the show that he executive produced and directed got. One of 23 nods the Disney Plus series earned, including for Best Limited Series. A prolific television director, Matt Shakman has directed shows including 6 Feet Under, House, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Game of Thrones, and one of the hottest shows right now out there, Succession." That, of course, comes to us from the folks at Variety. And by the way, our friend Victor Barrera sends in a super chat badge. Thank you, Victor. Rob, as somebody who does like Star Trek as it is, I gotta say, I've been losing a lot of steam as far as the movie side goes because, again, the coming going, the directors, they don't seem to know what it is they're doing. But I gotta say, I loved what this guy did, Rob, on WandaVision. I loved what he did on WandaVision. And it's not just the story of WandaVision. I mean, I love the way it was directed. I really did. And then you go over his resume and stuff like this. I think this bodes pretty well. I mean, listen, I know there's probably no news that could have came out about whoever was directing this movie that would have probably made you excited about it. But I mean, come on, this is actually pretty good news, but you hate it. Tell us why.
Well,
I'm being a little facetious there.
First of all, once again, this is just like every other announcement they've made for these Star Trek movies over the last couple of years. Look, I was looking forward to seeing what Noah Hawley was going to do with the Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
I really like what he did with Legion. One of these writers, Lindsay Beer, has had one thing produced. You know, Sarah Burgess is a loser. She's got a lot of upcoming projects and scripts here and there. I really think the way that the Star Trek franchise has been treated, at least from the feature film perspective, has been pretty, well, slipshod, maybe the word I'm thinking of, but it hasn't been handled well. All of these announcements, it feels like every announcement they're making is a Bad Robot's desperate ploy to keep control of this franchise. I mean, they've moved on to Warner Brothers. I don't even understand why Paramount still lets them develop. They still probably have something going on contractually, and it's almost like, well, we've got to fulfill our contractual obligations to get a movie out there, or we're going to lose the franchise. And I love Shakman as a director. I really do. And I really like what he did with WandaVision. But, you know, both of the writers that are tapped to write this script don't instill in me great confidence. And that's not to say they can't write a great script, but, you know, I would love to see, I don't know, an A-list screenwriter take a shot at Star Trek. And I just feel that it's like they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink up against the wall to see what sticks. Maybe this movie will get made. They don't announce anything about what it's about. They don't announce the cast. It's
way too early for that. It's way too early for that.
Well, I mean, they have a script. You know, they would know if the movie has been written by these people, they know what the story's about. Is it about the cast that we've already seen? Is it about a new cast? Is it a reinvention of the franchise? I mean, I don't think any franchise has been treated as shoddily as Star Trek has been over the last, and people are like, well, Rob, there's Lower Decks, there's Strange New Worlds. Have any of them made real inroads into pop culture? Have they been zeitgeist shows that we're talking about? Star Trek should be the pinnacle of science fiction, both on television and in the theaters. And is it?
So, you know, you and I could argue all day about this.
I know, but I mean, in terms of its,
but the whole bar you're trying to set, it should be the best thing ever. It should be the best thing in the world. But like Discovery, like, let's put it this way. I know a number of people that have never been into Star Trek, that Star Trek Discovery got them into. You know,
sure,
I am a fan of Star Trek. I've really enjoyed it, stuff like that. I just think, look, I agree with you that like the ins and outs of how this movie has come together reminds me of The Flash and all the drama The Flash has had going on. And that's concerning. But I mean, come on, man, even on a day where a director like Matt gets attached, you can't muster up a little bit of enthusiasm for this.
No, because I think the production.
I love giving Rob a hard time about this stuff.
No, the production company behind it has proven how many announcements are they going to make for their projects that haven't gotten made, beginning with Quentin Tarantino to our first female Star Trek director to Noah Hawley to now Matt Shakman. I mean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Or this is what, their fourth or fifth time there. It doesn't give me any. To me, it shows that there's no vision behind the Star Trek franchise. And what we need desperately is a Kevin Feige. We need a visionary. Like, who's producing this movie? It doesn't even say that J.J. Abrams is. It just says Bad Robot. Where's the producer where's the Jerry Bruckheimer?
Dude, I feel like you're making up stuff to complain about because tons of movie announcements get made and they don't give you all the details of the plot and who the producers are. This is standard regular stuff. I feel like you're kind of reaching for something to complain about here.
John, that might be true if this was the first announcement, but this is like the fourth announcement.
Oh, listen, I agree with you on that, but this is, again, I'm still frustrated about how many things have gone through, but now they're saying, okay, now this is our project we're doing, and it may fall through again, but this is still the first announcement of this particular project. Like, it's not the Quentin Tarantino thing.
Sure it is, but it shows a lack of leadership at the top, because there should be a visionary producer who knows exactly what they want, is totally in simpatico with Emma Watts at Paramount, who has made Star Trek a priority. And I just feel that it feels very nebulous, like they still don't know what they're doing, and they don't have a guiding hand behind it, other than the production company that's made the last 3 Star Trek movies that cost too much money and didn't return enough in terms of box office. And that's, I have no faith in this franchise right now. And I want to. It's my favorite franchise of all. And yet I feel like we're still being treated. How am I supposed to muster up the any enthusiasm for this?
Well, I mean,
I
look at it differently than you. Like, for instance, for me, the television projects have worked. I loved Picard. I mean, there are a few things about Discovery I don't like, but overall, despite the fact that I crapped on it for 2 years before it ever came out, I really enjoy Discovery. And look, this is a situation where if they tried to pursue a Quentin Tarantino thing and they were just realizing this isn't going to work, I'd rather them scrap it than force it through. If they were working on something with Nola Hawley and then they go, well, you know what, we don't think this is going to work, I would rather them scrap it. I agree with you that this is a little bit reminiscent of how Kathleen Kennedy kind of botched her first number of years at Star Wars, that she could just not get on the right page and on the same page with the filmmakers that she was picking. And that was an endless source of frustration for me. It's like, come on, your job is to be on the same page with these directors. Figure that out before you announce them as being directors. And I think that is a frustrating thing about this current thing. But, you know, at the same time, you balance that out with, listen, if you don't have the right story, don't do it, and wait until you get somebody on board who is the right fit for it. And maybe it'll be Matt, maybe it won't. But again, it's not like they've cracked out, you know, a Star Trek movie every year for the past 5 years out of desperation.
Thank God.
So, I don't know. I remain optimistic. You remain pessimistic. But we all want something good out of this. The question is for you guys. What do you think about the addition of Matt Shakman being here? He's right on the heels of getting 23 Emmy nominations for his series that he executive produced and directed in WandaVision. He's got not a lot of feature film experience, but a ton of AAA television experience. How do you guys feel about it? Is it enough to overcome the kind of eye rolling that we've all had about how many times they've gone through directors on this project so far? Is it really exciting? How do you guys feel about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. Rob, what is our third main topic today?
Our third main topic comes to us, and I thank you for this one, John. Cameron H. Hi, John and Rob. Newly released images from Hot Toys.
Hot Toys.
Show. I can't believe I've waited. I've waited so long, John. Newly released images from Hot Toys show the new black and gold Spider-Man suit that will be featured in Spider-Man No Way Home. However, the suit seems to feature elements of Doctor Strange's magic. Could this suggest that we'll be seeing Peter use the power of the Sorcerer Supreme come December? Well, John, we were talking about this before. Obviously, Hot Toys has been sort of the bellwether for the Marvel, certainly the shows. I was telling you before the show started, like, we got a Hot Toys announcement of a new Winter Soldier figure at the beginning of the Marvel series. And then at the end, they held back on the Sam Wilson new reveal until it had all dropped, and we met the new Captain America and what it looked like, and then Hot Toys dropped the figure announcement. They kind of did that here with Loki, but this, dude, this is pretty interesting because we're 5 months out from No Way Home. Now, there have been other toys, whether it was Lego, whether it's Funko Pops. We've seen these toys wondering whether or not, are these real? Like, how real are they? But if Hot Toys drops images, well, I mean that's kind of the final verdict. This is pretty significant. I find it quite interesting. I mean, it harks back to the black suit Spider-Man. It harks back to a little bit of Iron Spider. But like our viewer pointed out, man, Cameron H., you are correct. Is Spider-Man wielding? Is he a sorcerer in this movie? We know that with Tony Stark gone, maybe Stephen Strange steps in to be his mentor. I don't know. But to me, like, first of all, of course, hello, pre-order. Anyway, CBM says the official description doesn't give us much to go on, but does note that the figure comes with a, quote, selection of highly detailed accessories, including a gauntlet and mystic spiderweb effects. We see the former on the wall crawler's wrist here, and it seems that's going to come in handy during the final battle, especially if his webs can trap villains from another world. I find this design interesting and intriguing. And of course, John, I mean, it's not like I'm not going to buy it to go on my spider shelf. But I'll tell you, this figure left my spider senses tingling. And I think they waited till Loki had aired before they dropped this figure. I think they were, for whatever reason, I'm not going to say why I think so, but I think they did. And I think this is definitely pointing to the direction of where, obviously, Spider-Man No Way Home ties into whatever happens in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, which ties into the end of WandaVision, which certainly has ramifications with Loki. So I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is setting up a huge, we definitely know where the direction, the compass is certainly pointing in the direction of reality has been torn asunder. The multiverse is fractured. There's all kinds of craziness happening. And I think I still think we saw the first indication of it at the end of Far From Home with J. Jonah Jameson. And I think we're going to see more of it. And I'll tell you one thing, I salivated when I saw these pictures.
There's a couple of things that come to mind here when I look at this, because first of all, you're right. When we see this coming up from Hot Toys, that does not make it 100% ironclad guarantee, but it's far more reliable than, say, if it comes out on a Lego package, right? Because Lego could do whatever they want. Hot Toys tries to make stuff that you will see on screen.
Yep.
And, you know, one interesting thing about this too is I heard some people asking on Twitter today, why would Marvel allow these images to come out now? Well, remember, Marvel doesn't have anything to do with this. This is Sony's movie. Marvel produced it, but it's Sony owns it. They're the distributor. They make all the decisions about marketing. They make the decisions about what can come out and what can't as pertains to the movies and stuff like that. Even if Marvel has the toy license with Hot Toys, they can't put out any publicity things without Sony say so. So for whatever reason, they felt like it was okay. Rob, you and I were talking beforehand, and you and I both speculate that, you know, we're wondering, well, why are they showing this? And we both think it's because a Spider-Man 2 or a Spider-Man 3 trailer is nigh. I think a trailer is nigh. And when that trailer comes out, I believe we are going to see this. Like, I think that's why they probably felt like they could release these images now, is because this is something we're going to see. Interesting thing about this image, Rob, if you look at it, because it doesn't look like a different Spider-Man suit. If you look especially around the hands, it looks like whatever that black suit is, it looks like it's going over top of his regular Spider-Man suit. Because you look at his gloves, and even on the other side of the gauntlet, you still see the red of his outfit, and then it looks like the black is kind of layering over top of it.
Iron Spider suit's covered, like you said. Maybe the black is actually a mystical energy.
I mean, that could be it, because we are seeing a lot of mystical energy. And Rob, here we go. As much as I love, and I do, Rob, you know, I really, really like Spider-Man No Way Home, or Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man Homecoming. I like those movies very much. And I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. My one little constant nitpick is I never understood why they felt the need to make Spider-Man Iron Man Jr. I never understood that. And by the way, Vlad Mormont puts in the live chat, just to clarify this, says, there were reports that Kevin Feige guides the marketing this time. Kevin Feige never guides the marketing, even for his own movies. And Sony, it does their own marketing, just so you know. So you can ignore those reports. But it now feels like they've jumped from Spider-Man's not cool enough on his own, we got to make him Iron Man Jr., well, Iron Man's not here anymore. I know. Let's make him Doctor Strange Jr. Because Spider-Man's not cool enough. Everybody knows Spider-Man's not cool. He's boring. There's nothing interesting about Spider-Man. You got to make him like one of the other Marvel heroes. And so they make him like, now look. I am totally going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this, that when we see the movie, there will be contextual and narrative purpose for seeing what we're seeing here. And maybe this is another reality's version of Spider-Man. Maybe this isn't even Tom Holland's Spider-Man for all we know. So I will give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm just saying right now I've got my little Spidey senses going on. It's like, really? You had to make him Iron Man Jr. first, and now you got to make him Doctor Strange Jr.? Whatever. I will say this, though. The look is badass. I mean, there's no... The pure look of the outfit is great. And that's why I chuckled when you said pre-order. Because, listen... I wouldn't mind having this on my shelf. That looks really, really good. But it is clear that he's going to become a ward, as Doctor Strange put it. What is he, your ward? As Doctor Strange put it, maybe he becomes the youthful ward of Doctor Strange. I don't know.
Well, John, something else happened today that we didn't see figures of that Hot Toys announced. They announced they've done their concept art series figures. They did like a concept art Captain America where he kind of looked like his final version. They announced today a concept art figure from Avengers Endgame called the Iron Strange figure. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't even know what that looks like yet. But an Iron Strange? Did Stephen Strange, were they going to have an Iron Strange outfit in Endgame? I don't know. Is that going to play into Spider-Man No Way Home?
I don't. There's so much up in there right now. The MCU right now is actually in a state of absolute wackiness. And when I say something like that, I normally mean that in a good way, and I don't right now. But we'll get onto that a little bit in our next topic. Speaking of which, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this Spider-Man toy? Look, whatever the ramifications are of what we're seeing with the Mystic suit and everything, you got to admit the suit looks good. The suit looks really good. But what will it mean? How does it all tie in? Who knows, guys? Guys, what do you think about it? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Christina Upchurch, who writes, "Hey, John. Okay, I just finished watching the Loki finale and I loved it, even if it left me completely confused. LOL. Listen, Christina, you're not the only one, and we'll talk about that in a second. I can't wait for the spoiler discussion, but there are 2 other big pieces of news to talk about. First is that there's going to be a Loki season 2. Second, I saw on Twitter that it's been confirmed that Loki is going to be in Doctor Strange 2. I wanted to know what you thought of all this. Thank you." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Christina. And let's deal with the first things first, about there being a season 2. You guys probably woke up this morning and saw the headlines everywhere that there's going to be a Loki season 2. Leading up to the finale last night, a lot of people in our chats were asking, do we think there's going to be a season 2? And what I said was this. There's a reason why Marvel called WandaVision a limited series and did not call Loki that. There's a reason they called WandaVision a limited series, which is what WandaVision was just nominated for at the Emmys. It didn't get nominated for Best Drama. It was nominated for Best Limited Series, which means a one-shot, right? Basically a miniseries. But they did not qualify or classify either Falcon and the Winter Soldier or Loki as limited series, which tells us, that the plan is, if it does well, they're going to do a season 2. Well, they had already predetermined that they're going to do it because now the word is official. There is going to be a Loki season 2. And after watching the finale, and we won't go into heavy spoilers here, Well, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that they're going to be doing a Loki season 2. So there's that. Now, as far as the Doctor Strange thing, a lot of you guys are probably seeing this headline going around right now that Spider-Man is going to be in Doctor Strange. Now, Christina, you say it's now been confirmed. I should emphasize this. It's not confirmed. It's coming from a very reliable source, but just to be clear, semantics matter. It is not confirmed. This comes to us from the folks over at the Hollywood Reporter who write this, and talking about the Loki finale, they said, without getting into spoilers, we'll leave that for your Heat Vision colleagues, the Loki finale sets the stage for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Hiddleston's Loki character is also expected to also appear in the next Doctor Strange. Marvel, however, has yet to confirm whether or not that's happening. That comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. Now, the Hollywood Reporter, once again, is not Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart. They're the Hollywood Reporter. They don't just say things for the sake of saying them. So if they're saying we expect that it's expected he's going to be in that, I think you can at least assume for now that that's what's going to happen. Maybe we find out later it's not, but I think it's safe to assume that that's what's going to happen. So after seeing the finale last night, which we won't go into a great detail about, but even before the finale, you could tell a lot of stuff that's going on here with multiverse and blah, 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 blah. Now, if you had asked me before last night's finale, if you had asked me, do I think Loki is going to be in Doctor Strange 2? I would have said no. I mean, not impossible, but I would have told you, and maybe I did say, I would not expect to see Loki there. I mean, the film's already finished shooting, if I'm not mistaken, and there were no reports of Tom Hiddleston being around. But after watching the finale, it does make perfect sense, and now we're hearing these reports that it's going to be there. So I'm excited about that. That sounds like it could be pretty cool, especially after watching the finale. There's one thing I'm concerned about with the MCU right now, though. And this directly ties into Loki, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and there is this big growing concern. Not, I'm giving up on the MCU. No, just a concern. Just a concern. But we'll talk about that concern in just a second, because Rob, first, I want to hear your thoughts on the fact that it's confirmed there is going to be a Loki season 2. And what do you think about this report in the Hollywood Reporter that we're going to see Tom Hiddleston in Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness?
Look, I think after what we've seen, I think it's a good bet that Loki is going to play a role in all of this. And the reason that they kept this under wraps is because they wanted the show to air first. And Marvel is very good at keeping their secrets, which I admire them for, because it makes it a lot more fun. And I think that we're going to see some shenanigans. I think that they've now, what they've done is, they've just Loki's been positioned in a very interesting way at the conclusion of the first season of a series. And I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do with him now, because they didn't just restore him and turn him back into what he was. They've now made him somebody different. And it's not, we saw his character growth in our universe that was choked out by Thanos. This is a new, different Loki that has even gone further as far as a character based as a result of what happens. And I'm really curious to see where Tom Hiddleston's going to take Loki now. I'm really excited to see where Loki's going to be at in the rest of the MCU, because they've turned him into a character that I think is far more interesting than even he was through Infinity War. So I'm stoked.
See, I disagree a little bit. I mean, for the most part, I do, but I feel like the Loki we have now in a relatively short period of time has caught up with the Loki that we had in Infinity War, because when the last we saw Loki, we saw kind of the completion of his 180, right? We had to start off with a Loki who was seethingly jealous of his brother, even wanted, manipulated scenarios to get him cast out of Asgard, manipulated his own father to make it look like he was saving it, like all that stuff. And then by the time he got his neck snapped, he was willing to risk his own life and sacrifice himself in order to try to save his brother Thor. And that was the completion of a redemption arc, if you will, in many ways. And I feel like that there's a big speech. We won't go into the details of the speech, but there was a big speech that Loki gives last night that really, to me, made it feel like, okay, in just 6 episodes in 6 weeks, this Loki has now gotten all the way up to what it took like 7 years for that other Loki to do. And it's good to see that. And I think you're right. It even feels like maybe he took a step past that now, which was really cool to see. Rob, here's my worry, though. Here's my concern. And I want to know what you think of this. During the pregame show last night, one of the things that I said I'm a little bit worried about, and I say this as a big MCU fan, but I'm a little bit concerned about this. One of the reasons that the MCU has been so gargantuanly successful is not that they've pleased the hardcore comic geeks, like those of us on and watching this show.
Sure.
They've been massively successful because they've also appealed to the average film goer and entertainment consumer. They found a way to bring the best in the spirit of the comics in a way that's very easy and palatable for the general movie-going audience as well, and it's made everybody happy. That's a little bit hyperbole, but mostly everybody happy, and has been able to have everybody follow along. Rob, the comic books themselves, when they started to get really convoluted with multiple dimensions and multiple worlds and all this stuff, when the comic books themselves started getting lost in that, they would come up with these big events that basically wiped all of them out and brought them back into one single timeline, one single reality. So it was more palatable, I guess you could say. I am a little bit worried that with all this stuff of multiverses and timelines and variants and blah, 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 my fear is that the MCU might, remember, I'm only concerned about this, but might start to alienate significant chunks of the viewing audience that are not hardcore comic fans. I had a buddy of mine, I was telling you about this off camera. I had a buddy of mine yesterday who has read some comics, knows a bit, but talking to a buddy of mine last night after the show is like, I'm completely lost. I have no idea what's going on here. With timelines and blah, 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 blah. And I don't think they're alone. And even Christina, who wrote in, was saying, I have no idea what was happening, whatever. And I don't think they're alone. And I hope they don't go so bonkers that they're going to alienate the people, because Marvel is a big success because people who wouldn't traditionally watch comic book movies watch Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And I'm just a little bit worried that they may push it too far, that they're going to start to alienate that group of people. I'm not sure. Rob, what do you think? Am I way over paranoid about this, or how do you feel about it?
I don't think you're over paranoid at all. I mean, like I was telling you before, I've said this a lot on this show, that when they first started the Marvel Cinematic Universe, after Iron Man 1, I thought Iron Man 1 was a very grounded movie for the most part. It's really about one man coming to grips with himself and his feelings of guilt and having his come to Jesus moment, realizing his company is making things that kill innocent people. And even the end of the movie, when he's battling Ironmonger, it's two men. It's not an apocalyptic universe ending event. It was a fairly small, self-contained story, which is why it was good. And I'm wondering, okay, how do they then bring in Thor and Asgard and Odin and Loki and the Rainbow Bridge and Heimdall and all that? They did it. And then you're going to deal with World War II and super soldiers and all that with Captain America. How are these all going to work together? It worked. It worked beautifully. And by the time you get to Avengers, it's like, wow, you believe that Hulk can be part of this. You believe that the Chitauri can come through. You can believe that Thanos is out there. And then they've been able to expand, adding the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Celestials and the Nova Corps and Captain Marvel. They've done a really good job. Well, John, with the TVA and with the introduction of all things that entails, they've really pushed, they've gone into very science fiction, very fantastical concepts. I know, like Thanos wasn't enough of one, or Ego the Living Planet wasn't enough of one, but they've really blown up they've pushed the limits. Now we all those of us who know science fiction and all that, we've seen alternate timeline episodes of our favorite shows and things like that. We've seen Sliding Doors, that movie. We understand multiversal concepts, but man, Loki takes it to a whole new level. And it looks like what they're doing is, while once again, based in the comics, they're always looking to their source material, and I love them for that. But they're adding in a bunch of characters and a bunch of concepts that might be a little difficult to grasp for your casual moviegoer. Even people that have come to love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're going out. It's out there, dude. I mean, it's as far out as it goes now with this multiverse business. And I think a lot of people might get a little lost. It's a little murky. I thought I enjoyed Loki ultimately, but even I felt maybe they could have done a better job. There's a lot of questions and a lot of things I thought they could have focused on more in the show because it was only 6 episodes. So I agree with you. It's going to be hard to thread that needle because they're out there, bruh. They're out there on the edge. They're on the edge of craziness, and hopefully they'll keep their audience. I mean, if you're 8 years old and you love those Marvel movies, now you're dealing with these multiversal concepts and different tangents of universes and variants. Are you going to be able to keep it straight, or is it going to alienate that base? I don't know, man.
I think there's 38-year-olds out there that were in, because like, here's the thing, Marvel's always done a great job. Like you mentioned, they started expanding. We got into the magic element with Doctor Strange. We got into the intergalactic element with Guardians of the Galaxy. But even when they did all of that, they seemed to find a way to explore those ideas while keeping 2 feet grounded. You know what I mean? Yep. They kept it very character focused. They kept it very relatable for a lot of the audience. And as I'm watching Jonathan Majors last night and this whole dialogue going on, I'm like, whoo, they're going out there. They're going out there. And again, I am not sitting, I can just see it now. Some people saying John's is saying that the MCU now is doomed. No. I'm just saying, I'm just a little cautious, little worried, and want to see how they do this. I just hope they don't go too far because, man, the success they've had has been so great. But at any rate, by the way, guys, I just want to let you know that we are going to talk about full open Loki season finale spoilers today at 4 p.m. Los Angeles time. We are doing, of course, our final Loki open spoiler discussion. That'll be today at 4. That's 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, whatever time zone that is where you live. You guys can look that up. But 4 p.m. LA time, we hope that you guys will come and join us for that. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live comments and questions. I have a feeling there's going to be some Loki discussion going on. But how, once again, do you get a live comment or question in here on the show? Simply use the tip link that's in the description of this video. Click on it there or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. And don't forget, guys, don't ignore that top line on the form where it says your name. Because if you send in a good topic of conversation and you tip to support this channel, I want to make sure you get a shout out. So please make sure to fill out your name. Okay. Or whatever synonym you want to use. It doesn't matter. I just want to make sure you guys get recognized. Okay, let's get on over to the live questions, shall we? We're going to start out here with Anton Riley, who writes, Turning Red trailer came out today. I really liked it. Love the use of Backstreet Boys in the trailer. Looks pretty fun. Yeah, we talked at length about the Turning Red trailer. It's a new Pixar film being directed by the same woman who directed the Oscar-winning Pixar short, Bao, again, about a Chinese family or an Asian family living in Canada. Love that. I thought it looked cute and adorable, so I can't wait to see that thing. All right, Alejandro writes, you were involved in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, a movie that is almost nothing like the books. Wouldn't League be perfect as a Netflix series with its many characters and rich Victorian vibe? What do you think? Surprised nobody has proposed it. Well, one of the reasons nobody's proposed it, Alejandro, is because it still has the unbearable stench of failure on it. And yes, my company that I worked with the CGI visual effects company for a number of years. We did a little bit of work on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, some of the visual effects. Woo, that movie sucks. It's the movie, Rob, that drove Sean Connery out of acting. It drove Sean Connery out of acting. By the way, It's the movie that Sean Connery, it's the reason Sean Connery, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is the reason that Sean Connery turned down Lord of the Rings. He was going to be Gandalf.
Yep.
Sean Connery, now, it all worked out. Ian McKellen was a fabulous Gandalf, obviously. But Sean Connery was supposed to be Gandalf, turned down because he wanted to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And it drove him out of acting. Very, very bad movie. Big stench of failure on it. It could work very well as an Amazon or HBO Max or a Netflix kind of series. I think there's way, but again, it's all about execution. It's not about the property. It's about execution. You can have the greatest property in the world. If you don't execute, tough. If you take something as stupid as, let's make a movie about plastic square building blocks. If you come up with a great story idea and execute it well, you get the Lego movie. So it all depends, but I'd be down. I'd be down to see somebody take another crack at the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I really would, but they may have to wait a few more years to get that stench of failure out of the laundry. All right, next up, we go to Victor Vodka writes, one of two. Hey, John and Company. At first watch, I thought each variant was to their own void, but Frog, Thor, and Mobius were there too. Yeah, I agree. I thought that as well. So correct me if I'm wrong. All the variants in history ever sent to the void, only the Loki variant survived. Eliath. Yeah. Not only them, because you saw with Loki, I think some of those other henchmen that were with President Loki, I think some of them weren't necessarily Loki variants. But that's just an assumption. I'm sure many Loki variants didn't survive it, but almost everybody else dies at the hand of Eliath. So that's probably the right guess. He goes on and says, or is it safe to assume that there were plenty other survivors hiding away elsewhere? After all, we don't know the size and scale of the void to begin with. Is it a city? Is it a planet? Ultimately, the answer to that is it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. There could be colonies of hundreds of thousands of variant survivors elsewhere. Maybe it's only a handful of Lokis. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But my guess is it's theoretically possible, Victor. It's theoretically possible. All right, Victor Vaca also writes, looking forward to a more comic accurate and continuity consistent MCU X-Men. But how great would it have been if the Fox men were shown as variants of their future MCU counterparts? Maybe Fox Quicksilver is a variant of Ralph Bonner, LOL. You know what? I hear a number of people say that, Victor, but Rob, I am completely on the opposite side of that. I thought it would just be stupid and pathetically gimmicky. It's like, oh, look, there's Ian McKellen's Magneto. Well, that's not going to satisfy anybody. I mean, I really don't think so. Like, everybody thinks he's throwing these really dumb moments will somehow create some kind of excitement. I think it would just leave people disappointed. And then if they did show something like that, then it would be the hashtag restore Ian McKellen's Magneto or whatever would start going. So I'm kind of glad they don't do that. But in watching Loki, Rob, and they get into the void and all the stuff with the variants, did you ever start to think that maybe we start to see some of those Fox X-Men overlays? What do you think?
No, because if they did that, they would sort of delegitimize, I think, the X-Men. I think when we meet the X-Men in the MCU, they're going to have been here. That we just haven't seen them yet. And I think showing them in the guise or underneath this umbrella of variants and timelines, it delegitimizes them, at least for me. And I think that would be a cheap way to introduce them.
All right. Next up, we've got, where are we at here? We're at Chuck the Mystery, who writes, hey, John and Rob, Val Kilmer is one of my favorite actors of all time, so I am incredibly excited for the upcoming documentary called Val. I was so thrilled to hear you mention The Ghost and the Darkness. That film doesn't get enough attention. Kilmer was great in it. Kilmer and Michael Douglas. And I'll be honest with you, Rob, I was always surprised that we didn't see Kilmer and Michael Douglas do more together after that, because I don't just think each of them were fantastic in that. I thought they had great on-screen chemistry. And I mean, without CGI, the way they did the lions in that too was horrifying. That movie, I love that. And Rob, you were telling me the other day that you're hearing really good things about that documentary Val at the same time. What are you hearing?
Well, just how great it is. I mean, they debuted it in Cannes, and it's been getting some really great reviews just about how, it juxtaposes him now with his whole life, and I can't wait to see it. And it has to be difficult. He got throat cancer, and everything that happened to him is really a bummer. But it certainly looks like this documentary is going to be really heartfelt. And I love Val Kilmer. I mean, all the way back to when he was first starting out, but seeing him in things like Top Secret, and I loved him in Real Genius. And of course, Iceman later in Top Gun. He's one of my favorite actors. Tombstone, The Doors. I mean, the guy, what an incredible actor he is.
God, Top Secret is still one of my all-time favorite spoof movies. I love that one so much, so much. All right, let's keep moving on here. Next up, Chuck the Mystery writes, also, I want to ask about actors and film grosses. Can or does an actor get a cut of the box office grosses if it's negotiated? If that is worked into their contract ahead of time, if so, in what way does the shortened 45-day theatrical window affect actors, if at all? Thanks. Yeah, it's a not that every actor gets it. They certainly don't, but it's a fairly common practice, Rob, that big stars will negotiate as a part of their fee that they'll get what they call points. You get points. Like you'll get 2 points, which basically means you'll get 2% of, the box office. Sometimes that's before expenses are detracted. Sometimes that's after expenses are detracted, but that's all stuff that's negotiated as well. And so what would happen is sometimes an actor may, maybe a studio doesn't have the money or production company doesn't have the money to hire a certain actor at their regular $10 million asking rate. But they'll say, tell you what, can you take $7 million and we'll give you 2.5 points on the movie. And then the actor thinks, there's a potential this movie could make some money. Okay, I'll take $7 million and then a back end. So that happens too. Rob, the new reality of a 45-day theatrical window is going to massively change how that's all done. Yep. Because now that's not as lucrative as it used to be. I mean, it's still lucrative, but it's not as lucrative as it used to be. People aren't going to get the same amount of money, which is why a lot of the actors, for example, in a lot of those WB movies were completely pissed off because like, wait a minute. When we signed up for this movie and we negotiated, a half a point, 1.5 points in this thing, you never said nothing about putting it on HBO Max at the same time. And that's part of the reason why a lot of people got very upset in the industry. It's going to be, how do you see this affecting negotiations for actors and their salaries moving forward, Rob, with the new 45-day window?
Oh, dude, it's going to be a big deal because, a lot of not just actors, but directors, they have salary bumps built into their contracts based on box office performance. So I think it's going to significantly impact those deals. And I think they're going to have to figure out something else. They're going to have to compensate people more. That's why Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot got those fat checks for Wonder Woman 84 because they weren't going to have the opportunity that they would normally have to get their bumps. So in order to stave off some kind of a salary dispute, they just paid them off and said, is this acceptable? And they said, yes. But yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, it's a shift in terms of how the business is conducted. And I think we're going to see a lot of changes based on that. What those changes are and what form they're going to take, I don't really know, but it's definitely going to be something different.
Absolutely. All right. Next up, we got Primal Fear writes and tips in like $20. Thank you, Primal Fear, for supporting our channel on that level, man. Hello, John and crew. Love your show. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Very excited for the next John Wick installment, which has two of my favorite martial artists, Donnie Yen and Scott Adkins. Was wondering, which do you think was more popular, the John Wicks or the Expendables? Oh, that's easy. The John Wicks. The John Wicks. I mean, the Expendables were great because, they came out with all these old 80s action stars. I still love the concept of the Expendables. I enjoyed the first one. I really liked the second one. I was on the third one, but John Wick just exploded out of nowhere. Rob, I remember this was a movie that they didn't put out their first trailer. The first John Wick movie did not put out its first trailer until 4 weeks before the movie opened. Yeah. 4 weeks. And everybody instantly started talking about it. It's like, this looks pretty badass. But everybody forgets that John Wick or Keanu Reeves at that point had kind of lost his luster. Nobody was excited about Keanu Reeves at this time.
Right.
And then that trailer for John Wick dropped. All of a sudden, everybody's like, wait a minute. Look at this. And then the movie came out And it opened very modestly, but the word of mouth started to grow. And ever since then, the box office returns on these things have just gotten better and better and better. So I would say it's a fairly easy thing there. I think it's John Wick. What about you, Rob? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think it's John Wick too. The thing about the John Wick franchise that I don't think people talk about enough is the universe, the world building that it's created. I mean, at first, when I first saw John Wick, or I went and saw, I liked the trailer. I was like, I've always liked Keanu Reeves all the way back to River's Edge. But when I saw the first John Wick with the Continental and all of the assassins, the rules they have to follow and the money they have to use, and they were building this universe, this really intriguing place. And they've continued to develop that. I think that's one of the joys of the franchise. So I think people are, I mean, even me, dude. I mean, John Wick 4.
Can't wait.
I think we're all very excited for it because all the cast, even what the Bowery boss, or what is Lawrence Fishburne's character? I mean, all these characters are awesome. Lance Reddick.
Yeah, what is this? It's the something king.
I want to say the Bowery King. Is it the Bowery King?
That might be it. Yeah.
I mean, all these characters. I mean, Halle Berry kicked ass.
She was so good in that one.
So good.
So
I mean,
good.
I'm like, I've always liked Halle Berry as an actress, but she's always never used correctly. Man, they used her. She was great in John Wick. And I can't wait.
I'm very excited. Number 4. Cannot wait for number 4. All right, next up, we go on over to Daniel Kaufman. Haygood writes, "Hey John, I think it's a horrible, no good decision HBO made in canceling Lovecraft Country. The show netted 18 nominations, including Best Actor for Jonathan Majors. The show netted 18 nominations at the Emmys and was the most nominated show it had. How do you think they justify their terrible decision? It's simple. They did not believe the ideas that were being pitched for season 2 were good enough. I mean, listen, nobody's as upset about Lovecraft Country season 2 getting canceled than I am. I love that show. I thought it was great. I was very excited to see a second season. But the reality is, if HBO, sat down and they said, listen, what we're getting pitched to us for the idea of a second season, we just do not think meets because listen, not Netflix, not Disney, not Amazon, nobody has a higher standard than HBO does when it comes to television production. Nobody has a higher standard. And if HBO looked at what was being pitched and they just felt like this is not meeting our high standards of excellence like season 1 did, then instead of just running the property into the ground, they decide, we're just not going to do it. We'd rather focus our attention on something else that'll work. Now, again, and it's impossible to say whether that's the right decision or the wrong decision unless you're in the room with them and you've read the pitches. And since I was not in the room and I haven't read the pitches, all I am left to do is go, well, if they didn't think what they were reading was good enough, then I guess it's best just to move on. But I will always lament. And by the way, it's not necessarily over. Just because they announce something gets canceled doesn't mean it can't get put back on the books later if something comes up. So we'll see how it goes. All right, next up, we've got, that was Daniel. Next up, we've got Silvus writes, "Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much, man. What about the character, He Who Remains, as the master puppeteer? Definitely fits the bill. Thanks and stay filthy." Well, obviously, this came in just before the show aired last night, and I will not address that, obviously, because I don't want to get into stuff. But yeah, interesting theory. All right, next up, Fantasy Fran writes, "Hey, John, saw yesterday's show. If no one had told you, but Wheel of Time novels is definitely for people who love D&D, World of Warcraft, Oblivion genres, actually has its own RPG. And if it's good as the books, then get ready to be hooked. It's huge in this fantasy genre. I am excited. Yes, I'm very aware of Wheel of Time. I am. It's just what happened on yesterday's show was somebody wrote in and confusing Golden Compass with Wheel of Time. And I just went with it in my head too. Like I totally got those two crossed. So we started talking about one thing when we were really talking about another. But yes, I am very familiar with Wheel of Time. But listen, it's also, Rob, I don't know what you think about this, but Wheel of Time is also a very challenging thing to shoot. It's not something I don't know that it will be easily translatable to a screen. as some people think. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I've got a viewer. I'd be remiss to mention him, Stubble McShave. He watches this show. He loves Wheel of Time more than anyone. And just based on his enthusiasm and everything he's been sharing with me, he sent me the first Wheel of Time novel to read. It's a pretty great series. And Robert Jordan, who was writing it, died, and it was then taken over by Brandon Sanderson, who's a great novelist in his own right. And the people that, delving into its mythology and its world, it's the kind of thing I think people are going to, assuming it's well executed, because, man, it ain't easy to pull off. But they greenlit a second season before the first season's already aired, so they know something that we don't. I'm really excited for it, man. I think it's going to be epic.
All right. Next up, we've got Dangerous D, who writes, "Hey, John, Rob, or Aaron. I know your wife, Ann, is Filipina. She absolutely is. 105 pounds of Filipina fury. She is anxious, or is she anxious to watch the Pacquiao versus Spencer Jr. fight that's coming up on August 21st? I'm rooting for Pacquiao. Are you both going to watch? Who do you think will win? And remember, John, just max and relax." By the way, here, I want to bring this up here. So, I do not expect Pacquiao to win. Pacquiao is one of the all-time greatest boxers, but he's aging. Now, look, we've been saying that for a couple of years, and he always looks spectacular. I do not expect him to win that fight, but yes, we're being Filipino. We are all going to watch it. Anne actually has an uncle and an aunt who work with Manny Pacquiao in Filipino government. So there's that. And by the way, this is me. I've shown this picture before, but this is me with Manny Pacquiao. And I am wearing a barong, for those of you wondering. For those of you who are Filipino or no Filipino background, yes, that is a barong I am wearing. I chose to wear a traditional Filipino formal wear when I went. And this is in Manny Pacquiao's house. They invited me over to his house. I got to go into his house and talk to him about a documentary that he was doing, which was a lot of fun. But I do expect that he will lose this fight. I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm going to be cheering for him, but I do expect that he'll probably be losing this fight. All right, let's move on here. Next up, who do we got? We've got Mike Thompson, who writes, "Here's a fun game. Rank these 9 installments of famous franchises. F9, Rise of Skywalker, Star Trek, Insurrection." Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to rank those. Yeah, all those are kind of disappointment films in otherwise franchises that I quite enjoy. So you did a good job in picking those ones, Mike. All right, next up. Let's see here. Alfredo Parra writes, "I just watched Kevin Feige's interview with Rotten Tomatoes." That was a good interview, by the way, about Phase 4. "Aside from how creative he is, I was blown away by his communication skills and leadership. He never boasted about himself, but gave credit to everyone else. Great leader." No, see, that's one of the great things, Rob. I don't know how many times you've had a chance to meet Kevin, but I've had, 7, 8, 9 opportunities to either sit down with Kevin or stand around with Kevin at various things. And one of the things you are instantly... Here's an example. I've been in a room with both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige at the same time. When Bob Iger's in a room, and I mean this in a very good way, he emits a power that is so otherworldly and intimidating. Because it's, first of all, for a dude who's in his 70s, the dude is in terrific physical shape. I mean, Bob Iger, Big Papa Iger, is in great physical shape. But he's also got his perfect fucking tan and his perfect freaking teeth and his perfect freaking hair. And he just carries with him, he just exudes this power. Very friendly, very nice, but he exudes his power and this intimidation factor almost, right? Whereas Kevin Feige, and that's neither a good or bad thing, that's just what it is. Kevin Feige, he's got this attraction thing about him that you just feel drawn to him to want to chat. Not to go up to him and say, "Kevin, tell me when are the X-Men coming?" But no, Kevin Feige's got this persona and this aura about him that you just feel inclined to want to just walk up to this dude and start having a chat. And he talks with you on that level. And that's something really, like when you're speaking to, when you're in the presence of Bob Iger, you know you're in the presence of the most powerful man in Hollywood. When you're in the presence of Kevin Feige, you don't get the sense that you're in the presence of one of the most powerful guys in Hollywood. You get the sense that he's just a dude who just loves what he does, loves talking about crap and whatever. And it's a very unique, Rob, personality trait for a guy who's in a power position like him. I don't know. How would you define the difference between the two?
Well, I only have played squash with Bob Iger and have lunch with him on Sunday. No, I mean, I think you summed it up. I mean, Bob Iger is a captain of industry. He's a man who has been working in this business for a very long time on multiple different levels. Whereas, Kevin Feige wanted to do one thing, which is get into the movie business, and he was a geek, and he's producing movies at the highest level of geekdom that has ever existed. And I don't think Kevin Feige is the perfect person. He's the perfect balance of fan and professional.
That's a good way to put it.
I think that I know in my own life, my biggest problem in life is I've never found that balance. I've never found that balance between fan and professional. And maybe if I had, then I would be further along in my career. But unfortunately, I skew way too far into the fan realm. And my level of professionalism has not been as high as Kevin Feige's has been. But that's what Kevin Feige has. And his perfect balance of that has allowed him to turn the MCU into what it is. And I think, Bob Iger and Kevin Feige's content to be doing that. Whereas Bob Iger is an empire builder. He's not just content to be making movies. He wants to be doing everything. And he did. He took one of the greatest entertainment companies in the world that isn't just entertaining. It still has to be also one of the greatest financial powerhouses in the world for what it is and what it does. And he was able to do that and to manage that. And his skill set is, I always talk about people have a three-dimensional skill set. Bob Iger was working in the fourth dimension. And he did a phenomenal job. And it was based on experience and guts and chutzpah for whatever reason, whatever heady mix, frothy brew that they cooked up when they made Bob Iger. I mean, he broke a mold. And people that have that kind of power exude I think, I don't know what you would call it, but they're just working on multiple levels all the time. And it's very apparent when you meet somebody like that. It's not that they're full of ego. Certainly they have it. But you just understand that their understanding of the universe is a little bit above your pay grade. And that's okay. I love people like that. And we need people like that. Those are the people that move humanity forward.
All right, next up, Anonymous Viewer writes in, tips in like $20. Thank you, Anonymous Viewer. Writes in, John, I think King Loki is a cover for the real person behind the curtain, Kang. Well, this was sent in 17 hours ago, which is approximately 6 hours before the Loki finale aired. I can't address anything because I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but interesting theory, Anonymous. Interesting theory. All right, Jay Bling writes, after watching the Free Guy trailer reaction featuring Deadpool and Korg needs to be worked into the story for Deadpool 3. Make it happen. I disagree. No, he doesn't. Because here's the thing, Rob. I totally believe this 100%. You could have put any MCU character sitting beside Deadpool, and everybody today would be saying, they need to make a Deadpool movie with whoever that was they had in their seat. I mean, it was brilliant. It was great. But I love this, the best thing on the internet right now. The Deadpool and Korg doing a trailer reaction to Free Guy is the best thing on the internet right now. But I didn't feel the need that they need to do a Korg Deadpool movie. But I don't know. That's just me, Rob. What do you think?
I don't think they need to. The reason that Deadpool works is he's not saddled with one thing. He's got multiple things. He can jump between all of those things. And I think that's what makes it so great. Is, putting them together was such a genius bit, but it could have overstayed its welcome. Luckily, it does not.
Indeed.
And, I think that's a good thing that it doesn't.
All right, next up, we've got Stephen SD who writes, one Mobius in the void along with many Lokis. What made this one Mobius special to not vanish like non-Lokis in the void? Well, he had just gotten there. Remember, now we're going back to episode 5, but he had just gotten there. Like, Eliath had not had a chance to catch up to him and devour him yet. So that's the thing. Like if he had been in there for 100 years, maybe he's not still there, but he had just arrived. So that's probably the key there. All right, Jody Harkavy tips in like $20. Thank you, Jody, who writes in, I think it's the cat. And then cat is a Loki variant Flurkin. Because you remember, you go back to, I think it was episode 1, Rob, where they had the cat on the desk. That's it. Even the cat is a Loki. And it's a Flurkin all the same. I want to see more Flurkins in the MCU, by the way. Anyway,
Me
Jody,
too.
Thanks for sending that in, Jody. And thank you so much for tipping in $20, man. Really appreciate that. Thank you for supporting us on that level. All right, next up, Mike Prez writes, 1 of 2. Johnny, I raise my Zevia to you. There we go. I raise my Zevia as well. As for new Spider-Man movies made by Marvel Studios, I'm thinking what is voting against it from Chapek's point of view. Since Marvel made the first deal, they now have all the Fantastic Four and X-Men characters. Marvel could make a whole franchise out of those properties. Yes, they could. They totally could. Could make a whole franchise out of those properties if they wanted to. 2, only 25% box office share. 3, Marvel has the merchandising rights regardless, though we could always see Spider-Man swing by somehow, some way. Yeah, I mean, listen, Rob, I made a comment a while ago that everybody got mad at, but I'm sorry, I'm 1,000% right. Marvel doesn't need Spider-Man. And I know I can feel the butt cheeks clenching across the globe as I say that, but it's the truth. They don't need Spider-Man. Marvel has so many characters, so many premium characters. They don't need them. Now, would they like to have them? Sure, who wouldn't? Am I enjoying Marvel's produced Spider-Man movies? Absolutely I am. But if you want to boil it down and say, does Marvel need to have Spider-Man? No. Even without the Fantastic Four and even without this gargantuan influx of characters with the X-Men property that hasn't even got here yet, Marvel has enough characters to do TV shows and movies for the next 40 years. They don't have to have Spider-Man. They don't have to have him. It's nice. It's great. But they will just chug right along without missing a beat if they don't have Spider-Man. And that's the reality of it. That's simply the reality of it. Because Mike Prez is absolutely right, Rob. You could make an entire isolated cinematic universe just out of Fantastic Four. And you could make 5 isolated cinematic universes with all the characters that are in X-Men. So, yeah, I don't know. So, Rob, I say that. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Well, I mean, look, there's so many characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, I've always used this as an example. You know, think about your own circle of friends. Do you see all of your friends all the time? You know, you might have really good friends that you don't see for a year or two, and then you catch up with them. If somehow Spider-Man was gone from the MCU for, I don't know, 10 films, people might wonder what Spider-Man's been up to, but you're seeing the stories of those characters, and apparently Spider-Man wasn't a part of those stories, just like anyone's life is not intertwined with your friends 24/7. So I think that's why I believe the X-Men can be introduced into the MCU and have it work. We just haven't seen their stories yet. And people are like, well, where were they during the Thanos thing? Well, if you think about what happened with Thanos, Thanos was really only on Earth for a couple of hours. Why would the X-Men even know? Why would the Eternals even know what was going on in Wakanda? It's not like they're everywhere all the time. So I think if Spider-Man left the MCU right now, we would be sad, but it wouldn't matter.
Here's something I want to look up, because I'm seeing some people writing into the chat right now, saying to me, John, you don't get it. Spider-Man is the most popular Marvel character. Okay, that's true, and I don't take that away from him, but it doesn't change that they don't need him. Is Marvel the biggest power at the box office in movies with Spider-Man? Yes. Would Marvel be the biggest power at the box office in movies if they didn't have Spider-Man? The answer is yes. Because get this, even though he's their most popular character, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The highest grossing domestic Spider-Man movie is 9th. Spider-Man Far From Home is their 9th highest grossing. You know who's ahead of? Iron Man 3, obviously. Captain Marvel. A Captain Marvel movie is ahead of Spider-Man. So do they need to have Captain Marvel? No. So that's why I get it. He is the most popular MCU character, but it wouldn't change a thing. The MCU doesn't change at all with its box office success if they didn't have Spider-Man. It's great that he's there. They benefit from having him there. They don't need to have him there, though. So that's why I think in any negotiations with Sony, Rob, Marvel's not going to feel like they have to give away the house. Like Sony can't, if we don't even know if Sony wants to re-up the deal. I have a feeling they don't want to re-up the deal. But even if Sony wants to re-up the deal, Marvel's in a position where they can be like, we can, or we can, but we don't have to take a deal. And if Sony demands something ridiculously huge for Marvel to continue to be able to make Spider-Man movies, Marvel can just go, no, that's all right. We're good. I mean, we would like to have Spider-Man, but no, it's not worth it for us to give you like a $5 billion thing. You know, it just depends. Anyway, we spent too much time on that. Let's move on. But thanks for writing that in, Mike, because I agree with you. Next up, Film Lovin' Bro writes, this year's Emmy limited series category is stacked. Mayor versus Mayor of Easttown, which is amazing, versus Queen's Gambit versus WandaVision for series and actress. The other contenders are great too. I think Mayor and Kate Winslet should win. She will win. I mail her the Emmy now, Rob. Kate Winslet in Mayor of Easttown, mail her the Emmy now.
I don't know. Anya Taylor-Joy is going to give her a run for her money.
She was great. Anya Taylor-Joy was great. But would happy for any three. Who gets the edge? I agree. Anya Taylor-Joy was great. Elizabeth Olsen was fantastic. But Kate Winslet is the best actress out of the bunch. And that was I believe that was Kate Winslet's best performance of her career. Anya Taylor-Joy was fantastic in Queen's Gambit. I take nothing away from that or from Elizabeth Olsen's fantastic performance in WandaVision. But oh my God. Like Kate Winslet, again, I think Kate Winslet, I've lost track of how many Academy Award nominations she has, but this was, I believe, her best performance. So
amazing.
It'll be a very interesting race, but I got to lean towards Mayor. Rob, you are a huge fan of Queen's Gambit, but who do you give the edge to here?
Well, look, I love me some Kate Winslet. I do. And I thought her performance was absolutely fearless. I've never seen an actress. I mean, obviously she wasn't wearing makeup. She even had love scenes that didn't exactly present her in the best light. It was a fearless performance. I don't think I've ever seen an actress be more fearless in her role. She was incredible. And I think I'm going to agree with you. I mean, I would love to see her win. It's just that I really did love the Queen's Gambit. But, Anya Taylor-Joy's got time. She's obviously going to be one of our most powerhouse actresses moving forward. But what Kate Winslet did, my God, what an incredibly raw performance. It was amazing. I was blown away.
By the way, I had to look it up here. Kate Winslet, I forgot that she's got one, which is great to know. We're getting into, this is ridiculous stuff. Listen to this. Kate Winslet has 7 Academy Award acting nominations. 7. She won finally for The Reader. I forgot that she got Best Lead Actress for that, but she's been nominated for Sense and Sensibility, Titanic, Iris, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Little Children, The Reader, and Steve Jobs. And she was nominated, before this nomination, she was nominated for 2 other Emmys, including one that she won for an outstanding actress in a mini-series or a limited series, what they call it now. So she won that award before for Mildred Pierce in 2011. And I actually think this is the best performance she's ever given in her career. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens once we get to that point in time, Film Lovin' Bro. All right, next up, Power is Power writes, pulls off my glasses. My God. This, of course, will be proven wrong by tonight's finale. Okay, here we go. So this was sent in a few hours before Loki finale came out. But I just answered my own question. Loki and Sylvie were totally going to do it at the end of episode 3, an embarrassing 2-pump and done before the planet explosion. But, hey, Hey, they're gods. Better than my best 30. The impossible dark magical chaos of truly loving yourself rewrites the laws of physics and order. This Nexus event causes the creepy right-handed universe of Doctor Strange one less puzzle. Now, again, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts there, Powers Power, in the ever so descriptive way that you put it. But I obviously cannot, Rob and I cannot obviously go into any details on this or any depth, because that's going to be for the spoiler discussion a little bit later today at 4 p.m. Come back and join us for that. But yeah, good thoughts there, Powers Power. Good thoughts. All right, next up, Casey McNatt writes, 1 of 3. Hey, John, there's just a few things more I need to say about Black Widow. I know it's only been one movie that we have seen her character, but I think Yelena has really shot to pretty much the top of the... Let's try this again. Yelena has really shot to pretty much the top of one of the top characters. One more time. Yelena has really shot to pretty much the top of one of top characters in Marvel in my list. I just loved everything she did and said in the movie, and I can't wait to see how her journey continues into the MCU in Hawkeye and beyond. Also, I hope we see David Harbour's Red Guardian again sometime in the MCU, whether it's in some other movie or maybe even his own. You never know. If the character gets popular enough, maybe, just maybe, we could see a Red Guardian movie/series. And lastly, I just wanted to point out something I heard. The young child actress that played young Natasha is actually Mila Jovovich's daughter. Really? That's interesting. And the young actor that played young Neil was actually played young Neil in Haunting on Hill House. So bravo to them. Hope they have good careers, because I thought both played their parts very well. Rob, we've talked a lot about Black Widow. And, you know, obviously, I think it's a story of two movies, right? There's the villain story, which I thought was terrible. Everything about the villains I thought was terrible. Both the Ray Winstone, what a shame to waste a talent like Ray Winstone on that, and a Taskmaster, I thought they were terrible. But I thought everything else in the movie worked. I thought the action was solid. I loved the performances. The Red Guardian, David Harbour's Red Guardian, was a revelation for me. I loved it. Rachel Weisz obviously always delivers, Academy actress there. I thought the humor worked. I thought everything else worked. So overall, I liked it. Overall, I really did enjoy Black Widow, just not on the higher levels. And yeah, Rob, I think it gets underplayed what a massive task Florence Pugh was being asked for, because not only was she entering the MCU, but you have to enter the MCU alongside one of the most popular people in the MCU, in Scarlett Johansson, who is also, by the way, one of the better actresses in the world. And you have to come into that movie and stand side by side with her as her kind of heir apparent. They may not call Yelena Black Widow moving forward, but she is clearly now filling in the shoes for Scarlett Johansson's, at least until Scarlett Johansson comes back. I mean, that was a huge ask and a huge undertaking, and the way she pulled it off was fantastic. I loved her in this. What were your thoughts on Florence Pugh and Black Widow?
She was amazing. I mean, look, I think she's been one of our great actresses. But in terms of what I thought was really interesting about her performance in the movie is in terms of becoming an action heroine. You know, we've seen her in things like she was good in Little Women, she was good in Midsommar, and she's done things that were good. But I mean, that woman has charisma that leaps off the screen. She has a charisma that you can't teach. You have to have it. It's got to be innate in you. And she's a star. She has star power. I mean, and you even saw it like early on in the trailers when they first, those scenes when they would first meet each other. And I was wondering, I wonder if this translates. I thought that it looked good from the first Black Widow trailers, but that entire movie, man, she's a star. And I'm so happy that she's being retained in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, me too. All right, next up. Ryan Lohner writes, I wish I could have been in the room when they decided that Don Cheadle deserved a guest star nomination more than Carl Lumbly. I've been hearing a lot of this, but you are fundamentally misunderstanding the category. I'll get into that in a second. I wish I could have been in the room when they decided that Don Cheadle deserved a guest star nomination more than Carl Lumbly. I'm 100% serious. I want to know how that conversation went. Hell, even Cheadle's saying he doesn't get it. Look, here's the thing. Rob, I don't know if you saw this, but, Don Cheadle got a nomination for a best guest star appearance in a series, right? And a lot of people going, and he was only in the show for like 3 minutes. And then a lot of people going, why didn't Carl Lumbly, who played Isaiah, the old, the guy who became Captain America, or who the super soldier, the old super soldier in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, why didn't Carl Lumbly get that nomination? Because Carl Lumbly was not a guest appearance. Carl Lumbly appeared in multiple episodes. He was, by definition, a supporting actor in that. Don Cheadle did not get the nomination that Carl Lumbly should have got. Carl Lumbly was not a guest appearance. Carl Lumbly appeared in multiple episodes. He was, by definition of the Emmys, he was a supporting actor. So if Don Cheadle didn't get that nomination, Carl wasn't going to get it either. Carl doesn't qualify. He doesn't fit in that category. And I get it. On the surface, a lot of people look like, wait a minute. Why did he get it for that show instead of him? Because he got it for a category that he did actually qualify for, whereas Carl would have qualified for a different category altogether. He doesn't fit in that category. Now, you can still have the debate about whether Don Cheadle deserved an Emmy nomination for those 2 minutes that he was on screen, but it had nothing to do with Isaiah. It had nothing to do with Carl Lumbly. Rob, how do you understand the rules as far as that goes?
Well, dude, it's it's a little weird. I mean, people have to be submitted. I don't presume to understand how these things happen, and who was up for whom. I don't know, but from what I get, from what I understand, you have to be put forth by a studio. And by the way, that's something else you can also negotiate in your contract. Your that they have to submit you for awards consideration. Although I don't know in this case. It's a little weird, John. It's a little weird.
But again, it's like Carl was not a guest appearance. He was in multiple episodes. He was a recurring character.
Actor.
Yeah, he was a supporting actor in it. And so if he was going to get a nomination, it would have been for that category, not for that one. So I can understand the initial confusion, but you just got to understand they are two different categories that they each would have qualified for.
Yeah,
so.
and you're absolutely right about that. I mean, Don Cheadle truly was like a guest star.
Yeah, it literally was.
Did you see he was interviewed? He's like, I don't get it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't get it. He's like, hey, to all the lovers, great. To all the haters, whatever. I mean, I don't get it either. But yeah, again, that's another debate entirely. Whether or not Cheadle should have gotten a nomination at all is another debate entirely that is totally worth having. But it had nothing to do with Carl. That was a totally separate issue. All right, let's move on here. Next up, where are we at here? We're at Ben Rayner, who writes, hey, John, just got done watching Superman and Lois. I haven't seen the latest episode. Won't spoil anything, but this show is now my favorite DC show, and it's incredible. In my opinion, better than Loki. Thoughts? Bring on the filthy. Well, since I have not seen the newest episode of Superman and Lois, I obviously can't comment on that. Do I think Superman and Lois, up until the last episode I saw, is better than Loki? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I like Loki. I like the finale. But yeah, I can't believe I'm saying, Rob, if you had told me 6 months ago that frickin' bottom of the barrel jobber Superman, frickin' humiliating, embarrassing Superman was going to have his show on around the same time Loki was airing, and that Loki, my second favorite character in the MCU, and that I would like Jobber Superman show more than Loki, I would have not only told you were crazy, I probably would have punched you in the face. And because there's no way that's possible. And yet here we are. I do think Superman and Lois is a better show than Loki. But that's not me trashing on Loki. That's just saying I'm really surprised how much I like the Superman and Lois show. So yeah. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say the Superman and Lois show proves my adage that it's all about character and story. And, they gave Superman a really interesting idea. What is the one thing that his superpowers can't necessarily help him with? And that's being a good father. And they came up with it's all character and story. And like you said, they turned him into a jobber Superman. They diminished his character to prop up another character. That never works. Not in the long run. And I think that there's not a better example. Look, the Loki series was wildly ambitious in terms of the kind of story they were telling and what they wanted to do. And I don't think it's entirely successful. But they certainly were swinging for the fences. But in terms of a satisfying story of our favorite character, Superman, they did a great job. They're still doing a great job. And I feel exactly the same way you did. I didn't even know what the word jobber was till you told me.
All right. Next up, we've got 007 Robot Chicken writes, "Hey, John, I was just curious if you like watching Westerns." I do. And if so, do you have a favorite? We've talked about that several times. I think my favorite is probably either The Searchers or Fistful of Dollars. Of course, anything involving Clint Eastwood or John Wayne. But like I've said it before, I'll say it again. My all-time favorite Western, I think personally the greatest Western ever made, compared to the old Westerns, it is a relatively new one, even though it's like got to be over 20 years old now. And that is the Clint Eastwood film Unforgiven. I mean, to me,
it's 29 years old.
29, you're getting close to 30 years old. That movie, I don't like throwing around the word perfection very often, hardly ever. But as far as a Western go, that movie is borderline perfection. You had the iconic immortal Richard Harris. You had Gene Hackman, Little Bill. Yeah, Morgan Freeman in there. And of course, Clint Eastwood. Killing a man's a hell of a thing. You take everything he's got and everything he's ever going to have. What? I probably didn't say that line exactly right, but to me, it is the greatest Western ever made. And I could watch it every month for the rest of my life and never get tired of it. I don't know, Rob, what about you? What's your favorite Western?
Dude, I got to say that Unforgiven's just one of my favorite movies. But I mean, I really think that probably my favorite Western of all time is probably Shane. But yeah, I love Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But I think Unforgiven transcends the genre. And it's just one of my favorite movies of all time.
All right, we go on now to the next one. Comes to us from Godzilla 2000 writes, "Hey, John and Rob, I want to give a shout out to another really good movie called Nothing But the Truth with Kate Beckinsale, Vera Farmiga, Matt Dillon, Angela Bassett, and Alan Alda." Love Alan Alda. It's a really excellent little known film. I highly recommend it. Hey, you know what, Godzilla 2000? I'm going to tell you right now, I do not recall this movie. Nothing but, that's a hell of a cast. Rob, are you familiar with this one? Because
No.
Quite honestly, I am not. Yeah, all right. I thank you for putting that on my radar, Godzilla, because that is a great cast. So I'm going to look into that. Thanks for putting that on my radar. Also, Godzilla writes, "Hey, John and Rob, was recently watching Mission Impossible 3, and it really made me realize how much I miss the brilliance of Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was great in so many roles, from Capote to Doubt. What is your favorite role of his?" I mean, you go all the way back to Rob. You can go all the way back. I mean, his career was around before this, but you can even go to like Boogie Nights.
Oh, dude, I just watched that the other day.
Remember him in Boogie Nights?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, Capote, that's the one that really Capote was the movie that put Philip Seymour Hoffman on that top level. Like, everybody knew he was a very good actor. But once he did Capote, that was like, okay, no, he is top shelf. He's up there with the best in the world right now.
Yep.
And it was, so sad and unfortunate that he died. I did an interview with him, actually. Let me see if I can pull this up. I did an interview with him. I think it was for his last movie. No, it was not for his last movie. It was 2000 and, I was thinking something totally different. Anyway, I remember I did an interview with him where I got to sound with him to talk to him about a movie that he actually directed called Jack Goes Boating. And it didn't get the best reception, but I thought he was great in it, even though I didn't think he had a tremendous outing as a director on it. But it was really cool sitting down and talking to the dude. Just loved movies.
Yeah.
The dude just loved movies, and he could really show in his stuff. And I think because I knew that he directed Jack Goes Boating and it was such a personal project for him, I think that's why, for me, it was the thing I enjoyed watching him act in the most. Now, obviously, Capote, but I'll remember Jack Goes Boating. Rob, what about you? When you think of Philip Seymour Hoffman, what do you think about?
I loved him in The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, yeah.
I loved him in Scent of a Woman, and I loved him in Almost Famous, where he played the famous rock critic Lester Bangs.
And then the one he did with Joaquin Phoenix. The Master.
He was
The
amazing.
Master. So good in The Master. So, yeah, just absolutely fantastic and iconic. And speaking of fantastic and iconic, that does it for our time with Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, thanks again for being here today. Awesome as always. In the meantime, where can people find you and all of your Star Trek love and goodness online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, and you can always find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
Rob, a pleasure as always, my friend. I'll talk to you later.
All right, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. And of course, he'll be back again. But listen, guys, we still have a few more minutes, so let's keep on going through your comments and questions, shall we? We're going to get things rolling. We're going to keep things rolling here right now with Yum Yucker. I love the name. Yum Yucker writes, "Hey, John, I know you're not a baseball fan, but what do you think about Shohei Ohtani is doing? I don't watch baseball. I don't care about baseball. What he's doing is something special, and it's amazing to watch. Have you and Ann thought about going to Anaheim to catch a game now that you live closer? Dude, the only thing worse than watching baseball on TV is actually being at a baseball game. That is a boring as hell experience. I remember the last law firm that I worked for, before I left to start doing the movie blog full time, our law firm had private box seats, a private suite at the Air Canada Center, or at the Rogers Center. What used to be called the Sky Dome is now called the Rogers. I believe it's now called the Rogers Center. Anyway, it used to be called the Sky Dome. And we had private box seats, suite seats. And any employee at the firm, they could double check to see, hey, are the tickets for this game being used? And if they weren't being used, you could grab a couple tickets, grab a friend, and go to the game. And I remember I went once and I'm just like, God, this is boring. Like, it's much more. Baseball to me is one of those sports that is actually much more fun to watch on TV than it is to watch in person. I think every other sport is more fun to watch in person. That's one that I think is more fun to watch on TV. But yeah, I mean, listen though, it's like any sport. I will follow baseball once we get into the playoffs, because I find the drama of all sport. Once you get into the playoffs, I watch it. I do. But I don't follow it during the year, not even the Toronto Blue Jays. That's just me. I don't even consider baseball a sport. I consider it a very highly skilled game. But that's just me. And now everybody's getting mad at me. All right, I'll keep moving on here. Next up, Lance Prodigalidad. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, man. Thanks and he tipped in like $20. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate that very much. Hey, John, I created a post about Wolverine's small stature in the Facebook group. Please take some time to read it. Anyway, we'll move on. Anton Riley writes, dude, that season finale of Loki was great. Talk about sticking the landing. The journey was the best at times, but the freaking destination is amazing. Love the setup for phase 4. He Who Remains. I will say this. I thought, and we'll talk more about it in more details once we actually get into the spoiler discussion a little bit later. But I don't know that I go so far as to say they stuck the landing. I think it was good. I think the finale was good. I thought they definitely had some highlight moments in that finale, some things I really did like about it. And overall, I enjoyed the finale. I don't know that I'd say they stuck the landing. I thought if they wanted the story in the episode to end where it ended and have the things happen that happened in it, I think there are several ways they could have done it differently to still come to that same ending and that same set of events. Again, I can't go into it because I don't want to give any spoilers away. But, I mean, it is what it is. It's good. I can't wait to talk about it this afternoon, but I just can't go into it a lot right now. All right, next up, we've got James Lockman, who writes, 1 of 3. Hey, John, I hope you're having a great day. After a year and a half of not being able to go into a movie theater, I finally went. Good on you, man. I was smiling from ear to ear. I didn't even mind sitting through the 30 minutes of trailers. I saw Black Widow on opening day, and what a great first movie to come back to after not being able to set foot in theater for so long. I loved it. I remember when the trailer first came out, I wasn't super excited, but I knew it would be good. Now, having watched it, it was great, and Harbor and Pugh were the icing on top. Yeah, man, listen, I think Ann and I are going to go either tomorrow night. I think tomorrow night is when we're going to go. Ann and I are going to go watch Black Widow in the theaters because when I saw it, I had to watch it on a screener at home, unfortunately. So I haven't seen it on the big screen yet, which is how I really want to see it. I really like this movie. Again, I had my problems with the villains. I thought the villains were just ass. But everything else about it, I thought I loved. The David Harbour was great. And man, you got to have an experience I didn't get to have, which is to watch the damn thing in a movie theater. I think it's going to be an even better experience, as most movies are, once I get to go in there and see it on the big screen. So I'm glad you had a chance to go back, James. I'm glad you had a good, positive first experience back. And here's hoping you're going to get to have many, many more. All right. Next up, we got Grizzlies writes. Now we know why Taskmaster had male armor. The stunt double was a dude. This makes the Taskmaster character an even more glaring issue. They're not even consistent with what gender up. Just move on past this bullshit, shall we? Anyway, James Lockman writes, I have a suggestion for the movie studios and the theater chains. Let Ryan Reynolds do your trailers for you. I'd happily sit through 30 minutes watching him do them. Even his Mint mobile ads are funny. Ryan Reynolds is a walking marketing machine. Like, whether it's his damn Mint mobile ads, which are hilarious, the stuff he would do for his Aviator gin, he even got Hugh Jackman involved with those, hilarious. Obviously, the stuff he did with Deadpool and marketing Deadpool was absolutely incredible. And now this whole thing with Deadpool and Korg doing a trailer reaction for Free Guy. How they came up with a way to get everybody talking about Free Guy without actually making a new trailer is amazing. And Ryan Reynolds totally carries that. All right, next up. Let's see. Diego writes, hey, John, I actually enjoy the Peter Jackson version of Kong more than any of the modern versions. Overall, I just feel like the characters had more depth. Was curious if you've ever seen Jackson's Kong, and if you have, what are your thoughts? Bring on the filthy. Yeah, the Peter Jackson King Kong is really interesting. Because to me, it has one big glaring flaw. And the one big glaring flaw of Kong was that it was an hour too long. I remember I did experiments with this once it came out on home video. I remember doing this because I came out of the theater thinking, you know what? If you just cut out the first hour of the movie, like if you just took the first hour completely away, and all you had left was the final 2 hours. So basically the movie starts just before they arrive at Skull Island. Just before they arrive at Skull Island. That movie is 3 times better. And I remember I later tested that theory because I got the home video one of it, and then I had a couple of friends come over. This is when I was still living in Hamilton. I had a couple of friends come over, and they had not seen Peter Jackson's Kong, and I started the movie about an hour into it. And they thought it was great. They had never seen the movie. They were totally up. They understood everything that was going on, all from just taking the edit knife and cutting out the first hour of the movie. Everybody picked up very quickly on who the characters were and what everybody's deal was. Everybody picked up on it pretty quick. That, to me, is the big lasting legacy of Peter Jackson's Kong, was that I thought it was a full hour too long, and the easiest edit, just cut off the first hour. And I think it makes the movie 3 times better. Now, listen, I still like it overall. I mean, the battle with the T-Rexes and all that kind of stuff, some of the most thrilling stuff they've had on screen. But yeah, again, just cut off the first hour, and that movie is like way better. That's kind of my thoughts on Kong. All right, thanks for that, man. All right, next up. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, did you see the Spider-Man Hot Toys reveal? We were just talking about that a little bit earlier in the show. The Spider-Man Hot Toys reveal for No Way Home. They showcased the black and gold suit in all of its glory, and it looks amazing. A nice little combo of web slimming with the mystic arts element, anticipation level on 100. It looks amazing. I mean, no argument from me. It looks fantastic. And again, to me, it looks like it's going over his existing Spider-Man costume when you look at the hand part. At any rate, I I'm going to have to wait to see the movie to see how I feel about him becoming Doctor Strange Jr. Again, you know my feelings on it, but I'm going to wait to see how they make it play out in the movie, because maybe it's not Doctor Strange Jr. Maybe it's something completely different and I'm going to love it. But yeah, it just makes me a little bit nervous, Russell. It makes me a little bit nervous, but we'll see. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, so do we still call it the MCU? It seems like Marvel Cinematic Multiverse is more fitting now. Those crazy Spider-Man rumors suddenly seem a lot more plausible now. Well, they've always seemed plausible. Like the moment they announced that Jamie Foxx was coming back as Electro, everything became plausible. But I will say this, and I'm sticking by it. You guys know I have been saying for well over a year, maybe even 2 years, I believe, and I have no insider information on this, this is just me speculating as a fan, just wild speculation as a fan. But you guys know I have been saying forever that I believe Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is going to be the movie that ends the multiverse in Marvel. I believe that's, and I've said this over a year ago before we ever saw Loki, before we ever knew anything about Spider-Man No Way Home. I've been saying for a long time, for those of you who've been watching, Doctor Strange 2 is going to be the movie where the whole point of the movie is going to be they have to shut down multiverse because it's going to threaten to destroy everything. And watching Loki has only vastly reaffirmed my belief in that. It has really reaffirmed my belief in that. So, yes, I believe Doctor Strange 2 is going to be ending it. So I don't believe there's going to be any need to rename it to the multi-cinematic multiverse, because I think after Doctor Strange, we'll be right back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or more accurately, the Marvel Fake Death Cinematic Universe. But there's that. Okay, thanks. We'll see. But we'll see. I have no insider information. I just been saying this for well over a year. I might be right. I might be wrong. We'll find out soon enough. All right, next up. Max tips in like $50. Thank you, Max, for supporting our channel on that level, man. That is really generous of you. Thank you, dude. Max writes in, I have watched your career with great interest. A little bit of Palpatine in there. I have watched your career with great interest since the AMC days. This is for the Loki spoiler discussion. Listen, I can't read it. I can't read it. The Loki spoiler, for those of you who watch my stuff, you know that for the spoiler discussions, you have to go to the actual video and use the YouTube super chat feature. That's how we keep the questions separated. That's how we keep questions that are meant for the John Campea Show on the John Campea Show, and the questions that are meant for those spoiler discussions on the spoiler discussion. Otherwise, I have no way to keep them organized. So I'll tell you what, though. I am going to read the question. For those of you who have not seen the newest episode of Loki, I'm going to put up my hand because I'm going to be reading a spoiler question from Loki. When I put my hand down, that means it's safe for you to tune in again, okay? So if you want to mute your computer for a minute, now's the time to do it, all right? And I'm not going to bring the question up on screen just, because I don't want people to read it. So Max writes, I've watched your career with great interest since the AMC days. This is for the Loki spoiler discussion. While the season as a whole was very hit and miss, the finale was great. I had to care about someone other than himself, or Loki had to care about someone other than himself to truly grow. Okay. Actually, you know what? That wasn't so bad. that wasn't so bad. That wasn't really so bad. That's not very spoilery at all. Anyway, thank you for writing that in, Max. I would say, that I didn't think the finale was great. I didn't think it was great. But, and again, I can't go into any details. That I'll have to cover in the spoiler discussion later today. But I thought the highlight things in it were really fun and were really good. I thought the action that happened in some of the scenes I thought was really good. I like the character interactions that happened. Very, very good. Again, I'm being very careful not to spoil anything. And yeah, overall, I thought it was solid. I thought it wasn't the best episode of Loki, I don't think, but it was a solid episode, and it ended on a strong note. I thought it ended on a strong note. Loki still ends up for me being the third best out of the three. WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki. That's how I would rank the three MCU shows so far. But still, a solid ending. I enjoyed it. Some very important, relevant things happen in it. So, yeah, there's that. And again, Dumbax, thank you so much for sending that in. And thank you so much for supporting our channel on that level, man. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, next up. Here we go. Rich writes, "Hey, John and Rob, any interest in Scream 2022? Zero. I have zero interest in that. And have you heard Courtney Cox say this isn't Scream 5, it's Scream? So soft reboot? Wondering your guys' thoughts. Sorry if you've answered this in the past shows. Thanks." No, don't worry, man. I love the idea of them soft rebooting it because that franchise has been run into the ground way deep. That is a franchise that ran way deep into the ground to the point that I have absolutely zero interest in this new Scream. Zero interest. But I think the notion of kind of a soft reboot is and I have no idea if that's what they're doing. Again, I have zero interest in this film. But if that's what they're doing, and that's a big if because I don't know, but if they're doing like a little bit of a soft reboot thing, I think it's a good move. I think it would be a good move for it because, yeah, they just killed this franchise. It's just deader than dead. Anyway, hopefully it does well. All right, next up. That was Rich. Next up, we've got iMav. God. Got to skip over iMav. Sorry. Yeah. You know what, guys? I'm just going to shut the show down a little bit earlier today because I think a number of people have probably written in a number of spoilery questions for Loki. And while I'm cool to read them tomorrow to give you guys at least another 24 hours to watch the Loki episode, I think I'll probably cut today's show a little bit short just to make sure we don't get anything on screen. Because again, it's only been about 12 hours since the episode came out. So I want to give you guys some more of a chance to go and watch it and get all the details. So what we will do is we will cut off today's show about 10 minutes early and we'll get to the rest of these questions that probably have some pretty heavy Loki spoilers in them. We'll save those until tomorrow's show. But we got through most of the questions here today, so we did pretty well. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big thank you to the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett for bringing his glory and goodness to the show. Thank you to all of you for spending part of your day here with us. And a special thank you to those of you who sent in these live comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Guys, don't forget, a little bit later today at 4 o'clock Los Angeles time, we will be having our Loki open spoiler discussions. We will talk about all the details in a very safe, spoiler-filled environment. I hope you guys will come back and join us for that. Of course, the live event for that is already posted. You can go and jump in there and start chatting with other viewers as well. And we hope to see you then. But until then, guys, that'll do it for me. Remember to do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.